Welcome back to Royals Weekly. I am your host, Marcus Mead, and joining me as always, a man who knows a thing or two about the dark web, my brother Mike.
Dark web. I know exactly two things about the dark web. One, fantastic Letterkenny reference when you can get it, and then two, according to Charles Boyle, it's the only place for quality bat meat. That's all I know. That is literally
Mike,
everything I know. I bet there's some interesting shit that goes on there, though.
Mike's like, isn't the normal web dark enough?
I know, no kidding. Golly, it
Do we
gets
need a
worse.
darker
Are
web than
Are
that?
you
It
kidding
does
me?
get worse.
It gets
does
worse.
get worse. Yes, it does. All the stuff that's too clean or too dirty for the regular internet, it goes on the dark web. So think about that.
Yikes.
Yeah. Anyway, on this week's episode, we're going to discuss changes to the Royals hitting instruction group. They made some changes below the leadership level. We'll talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to go back over our preseason predictions to see who among us embarrassed himself the least. That's going to be our spotlight segment this week. Everybody looks forward to that one. And then we're going to discuss some potential trade partners for the Royals. I mean, all our fans look forward to it. I'm getting questions about it from Weekly Weirdos.
We call it
like,
Mark's annual comeuppance.
I'll take my comeuppance. I don't care. As far as consequences go, these are the least I've ever faced, and so that's nice. So that's what we're doing this week. A reminder that this week is our final weekly episode for a while. We'll do weekly episodes again once spring training starts. But during the off season, we just do monthly episodes because there's not that much going on. But sometimes if something big happens, we'll break in and we'll do a special episode, right? We'll do that. But if you would like to still get weekly episodes during the off season, you do have an option. You can go subscribe, become a paid subscriber to the Royals Weekly Substack. It's royalsweekly.substack.com. We have a bunch of conversations on there with people who are our subscribers. We have a lot of fun. I put out my huge off-season preview kind of post today. I don't know if you got a chance to read that, Mike. It's pretty long.
No, I'm excited now, though, because I'm going to be reading it this week.
It's essentially got my plan for what the Royals should do, but also a bunch of other stuff in there, like how much money they have to spend and all the different things that happen in the offseason and so much. It's really big. And so if you're interested in reading that and getting weekly episodes, because we're going to still do our midweek episodes in the offseason, become a paid subscriber. It's $5 a month. Gets you a whole bunch of extra content during the season and in the offseason. Go ahead and do that. royalsweekly.substack.com. Also, go out and rate and review us everywhere you can. Apple Podcast reviews help us a ton. If you're like, I don't want to spare the $5 a month, go leave us an Apple Podcast review. Interact with us on YouTube. Leave us a comment there. Or give us a 5-star rating on Spotify or whatever. All those things help us out. We appreciate them tremendously. So please make sure you do that. We don't have any new Apple Podcast reviews this week, but I got a comment on YouTube that basically reads like a review, and so I really wanted to read it. It's from somebody calling themselves at LV2Walk. I don't know if that's supposed to mean something or spell something. I don't know. But LV2Walk left a great comment under last week's episode and just said, enjoyed the episode. I'm only sorry to have discovered your podcast so late into the season. You both work well together and have a more calm, collected analysis as opposed to what one sees on Royals Twitter, which is in quotes, which I find hilarious, which can be volatile at times. Very true. Very true. Which is refreshing. Thanks for sharing your time. Thank you, LV2Walk. We really appreciate those very kind words.
It's love to walk.
Okay, I love to walk too, and so that's why we're on the same wavelength. Me and love to walk. Okay, so thank you so much for that. We appreciate those comments. We love interacting with you all on Substack, on YouTube, on wherever you want to interact with us. So make sure you're doing all you can to get in on the conversation because it's a fun one. When we recorded last week's episode, the Royals had not yet held their postseason press conference, which they hold every year after the season is over. So we didn't know at that time that Alex Zumwalt would be returning as hitting coach for the Royals, a move that didn't sit well with some Royals fans. General Manager JJ Picollo did state that they'd be making some changes with the hitting instruction, though the nature of those changes still had a little bit of mystery because we don't know who's going to be hired in some positions. We don't know everything there is to know, right? We do know that the Royals haven't renewed the contracts of assistant hitting coach Keone Duren or Joe Dillon or minor league hitting coordinator Drew Saylor. So 3 at least of the sort of hitting regime will not be back with the Royals in 2026. So someone else will be leading the minor league hitting development next year. Some other people will be being assistant hitting coaches. Mike, we discussed this at length on the midweek episode for the Substack subscribers, but give us your quick recap of your thoughts on keeping Zumwalt, but maybe cleaning a little house underneath him.
Well, I'm not a huge fan because I'm not a half-ass guy for anything. Like, don't half-ass a bunch of things, whole ass one thing. I if they're gonna change everything else, just get rid of him too and move something in that's a little bit different. I think is a good thing. I think he's done some good things with the team. I don't want to discount what the development of a guy like Bobby Witt Jr., the improvement of Michael Garcia. You know, we've seen guys take steps forward that are going to be big parts of this team, but I think it's time for a new approach, a new voice to get some to unlock some of the other aspects of these players and some other guys just in general. It's a big time for Royals hitting development with Carter Jensen on the doorstep, Jack Caglione on the doorstep, Gavin Cross, and perhaps being a guy that could be up in the next year or two. Uh, it's going to be big for a lineup that really needs improvement.
Yeah, it's always weird when accountability kind of skips the head guy. You know, like that always
That is
feels
weird,
weird.
right?
You know, it's like the buck stops down there. You know, like
Yeah,
not me, but before me. You know, like
yeah,
and it's not Zumwalt's fault. And sort of the way that people are describing the setup that they have, it was more like Zumwalt is, you know, overseeing things, and it's really Duran and Dylan and those guys who are supposed to be interacting with hitters and actually like watching sessions in the cage and making adjustments and tweaks and stuff like that. That's fine. And it was always a little bit weird to me, and I guess I'll get to this in a second, that Duran stuck around to begin with because he actually preceded Zumwalt. He was here before Zumwalt was, right? So that was always a little weird to me. But it is odd to me that they let Zumwalt stick around. I think there are a couple things that we can say about it. One, it probably means that next year is the final chance he'll get, I would imagine, right? Like, and I would also imagine that he probably needs to look carefully at who gets hired as assistant hitting coach, because if he's not the one who gets to really make that decision, then he should know the writing is on the wall, right? Like that one of those assistant hitting coaches is probably being prepared to take your job if you fail next year, right? Like if the hitting isn't better next year, right? And so it's one of those things that I like the idea. I mean, if they're not going to replace Zumwalt, then they need to do something, right? Like, and they at least they've done something that isn't exactly half in, half out. They've sort of said like, we believe that this was the problem, and this is what we're going to do to address it. But now we'll know one way or another, natural experiment, what was actually the problem. Because if those guys come in and nothing changes, Zumwalt was the problem, right? Like, but if new people come in and stuff does change, well, maybe it was Duran and Dylan and Sailor and so on and so forth.
yeah. I could definitely see that. That's a great isolating the issue is a pretty common practice, especially here in these professional sports leagues when you have that kind of structure to your coaching staff.
Yeah, by not renewing Duran and Dylan, they're essentially drawing a line between what Zumwalt does and what they did. Do you think that Duran and Dylan, or why do you think Duran and Dylan ultimately weren't renewed?
This is kind of the way, and you alluded to this, that it works sometimes in sports, right? When you have this kind of coaching structure, and it's this kind of similar in the NFL, right? Um, Sometimes head coaches, instead of getting fired in the NFL, will have the opportunity to change out their, coordinators or whatever, right? But the head coach might be the problem. like
Mm-hmm.
they just get an opportunity to do that, and then they really know. And you kind of mentioned that, like they'll change everything underneath, and you can go down the chain, even offensive coordinator. It's like, hey, if I'm an offensive coordinator in football and we're not scoring points, they may give us the opportunity if they truly believe in me, and they're higher of me, they'll clear out everybody beneath me and see if that changes something. And yeah, this is one way to do it. I'm glad you brought up that that really does put the writing on the wall, because I hadn't really thought about that. Alex Zumwalt, if he hasn't felt the pressure, sure as shit should be now.
Oh, he's definitely going to have to feel the pressure now. I think Zumwalt probably had an argument to make that was like, listen, you gave me Duran, and honestly, the Joe Dillon hire, I always thought was weird. Like when they hired him last year, I was like, okay, because he's only been here since 2024, and the sort of story that accompanied his hiring was like, well, Joe Dillon has done this with the Washington Nationals and has done this with. I'm like, nothing in his background screamed like a great fit for a hitting instruction that was looking to be more data heavy, that was looking to focus on swing decisions above all. It seemed like a weird fit at the time, and I was like, did Zumwalt hire this guy?
This seems like a step back to the Dayton Moore Royals.
Yeah, it was
in that
odd to me.
approach.
It was an odd choice, honestly. And so Zumwalt probably had some sort of argument that was like, you didn't, these aren't my guys. Like, you didn't let me participate in the hiring of Duren. He was here before I got here. And then Dylan, maybe Zumwalt had a say in that. I'm sure he had some sort of say. But like, if he's thinking to himself, like, hey, I have an argument to make where I need to get my kind of guys in here. I need to like have guys who can focus and speak the language I'm speaking. Then maybe he has some sort of argument. But now that argument is, you only get one of those bullets, right? Like that argument will be gone after this season. You can't fire that bullet again, right? And so we'll see after this year if they end up now. I hope that means they're targeting people who have a track record of working on guys with swing decisions, like or working on swing decisions with guys. Like find somebody at Private Labs, find somebody in better organizations like the Brewers, or some of these more patient organizations like the A's and stuff like that. Bring in guys who can help guys with swing decisions, and you have a sense of like, okay, this maybe combination of Zumwalt and these guys can work better. Mike, I want to think a little bit about the change at the minor league hitting coordinator too. Why do you think they didn't renew Saylor's contract?
I'm not sure on that. We did see some growth from guys this year. We've seen some growth even with regard to swing decisions in minor league baseball. I mean, that's been part of what Carson Roccafort's growth has been. Carter Jensen's kind of always been that way, but Gavin Cross has done a little bit better as well. You've seen some of that. I think it may be kind of like what you just mentioned with the hitting staff or with the assistant hitting coaches is like, maybe they're not speaking the same language. Maybe the continuity isn't what Alex Zumwalt wants. And Alex Zumwalt is he's the head dog of the hitting development system. If he was saying, hey, this is the other part that needs to be changed because what I'm getting when they get to Major League Baseball isn't the product that I want. It's not I'm telling these guys a thing. And like you mentioned, they're not understanding even the language that I'm speaking, the approach that I'm using, because what we're doing at the minor level isn't the same. I need to get somebody in there that's going to do it the same way I do it.
And that's really what we've seen on the pitching side, right? Like, is that Brian Sweeney is the top dog, bite them all, and everybody underneath him in the organization follows. Like, you can see a definitive through line from the stuff that they're doing in Low A Columbia all the way up through the system to Brian Sweeney, right? Like, even from player acquisition side, like you can see it, player acquisition to Low A Columbia all the way up the system. There's like a through line of the type of pitcher they're trying to identify, how they're trying to improve guys, what their priorities are. It's all straight through the organization, and you can see it. It's an amazing thing to see. It doesn't seem like the same sort of through line exists for the hitting instruction, right? Like it doesn't seem that that's there, right? I think, or in terms of the minor league hitters.
Okay, question for you, because I'm glad you brought that up. If that was there, what would we have expected to see in these last few years? If there was a through line, you would
player
expect
acquisition
to see, at least for
probably
me,
would have been a little different.
Would be different,
right? Like,
yeah. But like even development wise, like you would see some of these guys taking a step forward in certain areas that we just don't see.
Yeah, and that's what really gets me. Is the growth in certain areas, right? We can say like, yes, Carson Rockefort has gotten better. Yes, it was great to see Carter Jensen get better and better all the time, right? But there doesn't seem to be enough growth in certain areas across the organization, right? Like if you go look at that Low A Columbia lineup, for example, they're a great example. They're chock full of talent, right? Ramon Ramirez, Yandel Ricardo, Asbel Gonzalez, Daniel Vasquez was there recently. I think he's in high A now, but like there are a lot of dudes, especially dudes from Latin America, in that Low A and lineup. And you look at them and you're like, oh, like these are bad plate appearances, and they've been bad plate appearances for quite a while now. Like it's not like, and so whereas if you go into the A's organization, for example, and you look at up and down, like what they're doing is they're acquiring players with approach. They're rehammering that all the way through. And so like their whole system looks like A's hitters, right? Like it's A's hitters from Low A to Triple A into the majors, right? And they don't all succeed. A lot of them are right now because they have a killer lineup, like a really good young lineup. But it's just that sort of identity doesn't exist for the Royals. And it makes me wonder, like, have they not transitioned the hitting side to the same sort of hierarchy that exists on the pitching side, right? Like, it's not the case that all organizations, the major league pitching coach is the head of like the development hierarchy. It hasn't always been that way in Major League Baseball. It used to be like, oh, the hitting coach and pitching coach are specific to the major league team, but they don't necessarily like
And then they have
filter it
a
all the way
minor league
down.
coordinator who's at the top that
or something like that,
minor
right?
league
And
hitting
so like
coordinator, and he does
right. And so I'm just curious to see if that's where they're moving towards, if that makes sense. Mike, what do you want to see in something like a Drew Saylor's replacement then? If we're thinking about a new minor league coordinator, what do you want to see in that type of person?
Just really two things, and we've talked about it before, and you hit on it already. I want to see a systematic focus on approach at the lower levels and promotions that are based on sustainable growth. And I think Jack Caglianone's a fantastic example of that, in that he gets promoted to AAA, probably, on numbers of production that when you watch at bat after at bat after at bat, you're still seeing him chase. You're still seeing him do these things that aren't going to work in Major League Baseball, but you're okay with it because he's making numbers in AA. And so you say, okay, well, he's good to go to AAA. He gets 12 games of production there doing the same stuff and gets to come to Major League Baseball. And we saw the result of that. Sustainable growth should be what you're seeing before you move on to a level. Not just production at AA, not just production in Quad Cities. If you're swinging at garbage, it doesn't translate to Major League Baseball. And we know that there are ways that certain guys can make it work in those lower levels. MJ Melendez hits all the time. Okay. When guys are bums and can't make him do it on the edge of the plate, like, and you got to start seeing that from that approach. It drives me insane.
Yeah. What's interesting is the Royals make this argument that and Jack Caglianone is the latest one that they're doing it with, but they do it with any hitting prospect or any prospect at all, really, that they rush to the major leagues. Their argument is always, well, AAA wasn't challenging him enough. And it's like, AAA was only not challenging him if his metric for success is those overall numbers, batting average, on base.
You can measure it and show him. That. You can go, you see all these, you got hits on them, but they're not hits. We don't even count.
But arguably, him having that metric for success is a failure on your part anyway. He shouldn't have that metric for success at that point. The second they enter your system, their metric for success needs to start changing, right? Like, it needs to start changing to things like they have an internal swing metric, like a swing decision metric. That needs to be your metric for success, Jack Caglianone. How often do you swing at pitches you should and not swing at pitches you shouldn't? That's your metric for success, right? How often do you hit the ball in the air? That's your metric for success. How often, these sorts of things are your metrics for success, not, well, was I able to hit a really hard ground ball down the left field line and beat it out for a double? Hey, extra base hit me. Yay, that's a success. No, it's not, right? Like, you hitting the ground ball, a ball on the ground is always a failure, basically, right? Like, and so it's that sort of thing. I don't like the argument that AAA wasn't challenging him enough. You know why? Because the Rays will leave a guy in AAA for years until he learns how to do the thing that's going to make him successful in Major League Baseball, right? Like, they left Josh Lowe in AAA for ever while he was just destroying AAA because he wasn't doing the stuff they knew would make him successful in Major League Baseball. And so they're like, no, you're going to stay there until you're doing it, right? Like, that's how you get guys to shift the mindset, right? You can't keep promoting them just because they're putting up big numbers at a level. Like, it's just, that's not the way to do it, honestly. Royals Weekly is brought to you by Eric Oxer of West USA Realty. Do you have the same fantasy we do, retiring to a land of eternal summer? If so, you need to call Eric Oxer of West USA Realty pronto. He can help you transition to a lovely home in the Phoenix area and a life of fun in the sun.
I watched the Dolphins play football today. I need to make some life changes. And it starts by moving to Phoenix. Ox, I'm coming.
Eric was one of the top real estate agents in the Phoenix area to end 2024 because he gives all of his clients a personal experience focused entirely on their needs. With Eric Oxer of West USA Realty, it's not about him. It's about you. He's there to listen to you, work for you, and guide you through the ins and outs of buying and selling in the Phoenix area.
He'll let you know how unwise it is to put money or faith in the liquid sewage that is the Dolphins' defense.
It's very bad. I can't unsee what I saw earlier today. Mm-hmm. Find Eric Oxer of West USA Realty online at ericoxer.com. That's ERICKAUXIER.com. Or just give him a call or shoot him a text at 480 480-383-9745. That's 480-383-9745. If you're at all interested in a life in the Phoenix area, let him make the experience all about you. The time has come. The day is here.
It's nigh.
Every season, we offer predictions of how players and units for the Royals will do. And every year, we are embarrassingly wrong.
You are
So far,
embarrassingly wrong.
Mike's been slightly less wrong than me, but I think even he'll admit he's pretty bad at this. And actually, the totals for this year will prove that Mike and I are both bad at this. But
my
we'll
metric for success is just beating you every year.
I know.
That's my metric for success.
Will this be Mike's fourth victory in a row? Or do I finally pull myself from the depths of ineptitude and stake my claim to victory? We shall see. Well, we do need to mention that Alex Duvall, good friend of the show, has hosted and come on as a guest many times. He participated in these with us. So we'll run down his totals as well. Hopefully he's listening so he knows whether he won or lost. But we'll start with the team's MVP, Bobby Witt Jr. We put up an over-under prediction. If you don't know, all of our predictions for the most part are over-under format. And so you'll either be right or wrong. Sometimes we push, but not very often. We asked Bobby Witt Jr. over-under 9.3 F-WAR. He came in under. He was worth about 8 F-WAR, which is still an amazing season, but 9.3 was asking a lot of anybody. But it's actually less than he put up last year, which is crazy, right? We all said he would go under, so that's a point for Alex, me, and Mike. All of us got that one correct. Things will not remain that way, right? We're going to get a lot worse here in a second.
And here's the question, I guess, for you. 9.3. Is that still where you would set it today? It's got to come down still a little bit, right?
Like if I'm going to do one for next year?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think I would put it somewhere in the 8.5 range for next year.
That's where I would go. Yeah.
Yeah. We'll see what happens next year. But actually, we're going to talk about some of the numbers I set, which you two ridiculed when we're dead on. Not even dead on. We'll get.
There's one I looked at. I was like, okay, he was really good on that one.
Vinny Pasquantino. We had to talk about him preseason because he was going to be such a key to the Royals offense. So we set the over-under at 112 weighted runs created plus. Vinny Pasquantino came in just above that at 116. Great to see. Mike actually had him taken under. I had him taken under, so we were both wrong on that front. Alex Duvall had big confidence in Vinny Pasquantino, as he always has. He went over, and Alex got a point there where Mike and I took a step back. Mike, what do you think the key for Vinny finally finding his success this year was?
One, obviously staying healthy. That's always going to be a big thing for him. And then we've talked a little bit about it. The increased bat speed, the ability to get the ball pull to his pull side in the air was a difference maker for him this year. Allowed the 30 home runs, over 100 RBI, really an anchor to a lineup. A little bit of a slow start, which we're hoping he starts to get rid of. He's notorious for those. We'd like to see that end. But if we get 116 next year, I'll be happy with Vinny again.
Yeah, I'm hoping for more like 125 next year. If you're talking about first base production,
fantastic.
I'd like to, and honestly, if he cuts out the bad first 2 months, he's easily there, right? So I think he'll give that a run next year. Next up, Jonathan India. If you recall, back before the season started, there was great hope that Jonathan India would be like a leadoff hitter, like a real one, and actually get on base and stuff, and maybe even score a lot of runs ahead of Bobby Witt Jr. and Vinny Pasquantino. And so I set his over/under runs number at 95. I was viciously ridiculed by both Alex and Mike as like, he's going to go way over that. He's going over 120, they were saying. I was like, I think 95 is a pretty good number.
I did not say that.
I have the tape. I will play the tape.
Over
do not
120.
Do not make me. Anyway.
Lead the league in runs.
India, I set the number at 95 because what you don't know is scoring more than 90 runs is very uncommon in Major League Baseball even now, right? And so like, yeah, I set it at 95. He did not come even close to 95. He had 63 runs scored from a season where I don't know that he ever went on the IL. He was like kind of nicked up and hurt quite a bit, but never went on the IL, I don't think. We all got it wrong. I took the over, which I was foolish to do. Mike took the over, also foolish. So did Alex. So we all got that one wrong. Jonathan India, definitely not what we all hoped he would be. Next up, Michael Massey. I remember the conversation around this one too. You guys thought I was crazy for setting it this high. Michael Massey over under a 36% chase rate, which is high, right? Like 36% is high. He did not manage to get under it. All of us took the under. We all got it wrong. He did not manage to take the under. Mike, how come Michael Massey can't help chasing?
Why don't you ask Keone Duran and Joe Dillon and Drew Saylor about that right now?
They got some
Just
free
go ask
time.
them.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Okay, they're going to be able to wax poetic on Michael Massey's chase rate.
Yeah, I bet they will
for a while.
If I were them, I'd be at a bar right now complaining about Michael Massey because he lost me my job. You know, and they're probably screaming 36%. Actually, they're screaming 37.6% because that's what he came up with this year as a chase.
Like
rate.
the coach in Seinfeld who keeps screaming out "Can't stand you" on the steps.
Exactly.
In sheer insanity. I went under because it seemed so ridiculous. That's why I went under. It's ridiculous.
How can you get less discipline?
Everybody knows this is the problem and has for years known this is the problem. How are you still up there? It's insane to me. We'll see. Somebody better have a damn good plan for Michael Massey going into next year.
Damn good. I got one. Sit down. Next up, we did Salvador Perez's walk rate, which is my favorite over-under to do because it's hilarious every time. He had something like a 6.8% walk rate or something like that in 2024. I set the over-under at 6.5% for his walk rate, which, keep in mind, is not high. That is not a high walk rate. That's still very low. Over-under. Mike took the under. Alex took the under. I took the over. What a fool I am. He came in under that 6.5% walk rate at 4.4%. Mike, why isn't Salvador Perez taking steps forward in that plate discipline?
If a person could make money betting on the walk rate of Salvador Perez, just bet the under all the time. Just bet the under. It's never going to be above 5 ever. So you're going to make a whole lot of money, a whole lot of rent money, just betting the under on his ability to take a walk. He is what he is at this point. Move him down the lineup. Let him hit. He's a legend. I love him.
Hit you 30 home runs hitting 6th.
That'd be fantastic. Yeah.
Next up, we went with MJ Melendez. If you also don't remember, sometimes my memory forgets what took place in the beginning of the season. If you don't recall, the Royals came into the season with MJ Melendez playing left field and Hunter Renfroe playing right field. The next two are about them. Okay. we knew that might not work out. And so we asked MJ Melendez over under 400 plate appearances for the Kansas City Royals. 400, which is not a full season. Is not a full season worth of playing time. It's about 2/3 of the season.
Yeah, 6+ is
about 2/3, right? Mike took the over, and his actually says over ... Zorp help us. Right? Like,
because I didn't want him getting over 400 plate appearances.
But he was wrong. Alex and I were right. We both took the under. MJ Melendez ended up with 65 plate appearances. His future in the Royals organization does not look strong. He going the way of Nick Prado, honestly, down there. Next up, we did the exact same thing for Hunter Renfroe. Hunter Renfroe over under 400 plate appearances. He got more than MJ Melendez. And we actually just flipped those roles. Alex and I took the over. Mike took the under. He got more than Melendez, but he was still way under 400. He only got 108 plate appearances. Mike, their willingness to move on from Melendez and Renfroe early in the season, at the very least, showed some signs that they're significantly different than the previous regime, in that they were like, that's it, we're done, had enough, move on.
Yeah. Then they brought back Adam Frazier, though. So
that is true. That is true. That is true.
Different than the other regime, kind of. Ish.
Yeah, Adam Frazier, real cheap though. So that was yeah. And did some good things. It
was good to see him move off of that. Of course, those guys' inability to produce also meant that you call up Jack too early. That's kind of a thing you got to look at as well. But no, glad they were able to do that. I hope they keep doing that because the last regime fell in love with guys and it just became a problem,
Mm-hmm. Here's a guy who we all fell in love with this year, Maikel Garcia. We did an over-under on his ground ball rate at 47%. He actually came in under, which is, I think, one of the big keys to his success this year. We all took the over because last year he was something like 51%, I want to say. So 47 was asking quite a bit for him to get under, but he did get under it, and I think it essentially led to his breakout, right? We all were wrong on that front. Mike, what are your thoughts on seeing Garcia hit fewer ground balls this year?
Really happy I was wrong. Really happy
Yeah.
to see his swing decisions improve and him get to his pull side power a little bit more and really, I mean, that's really the perfect Maikel Garcia season that we kind of always said, if he really gets there, this is the kind of player he is. 15-ish home runs,
A lot of
a
doubles
batting,
down the left field
a lot of
line.
doubles, a great base runner, great glove, ability to get on base a little bit, even with the walk, it's not high walk numbers, and then we said possibly a guy who could be a pretty good leadoff hitter, and he was able to do that at times too. So, really happy to be wrong on that one. Hope he keeps it up next year. I hope that number goes down again next year.
Yeah, same here. I'd love to see him around 40% as a ground ball rate. Next up was that we switched to pitching. Had to do some pitchers in here. Cole Reagans over under 9% walk rate. I think he hadn't been under 10 up until we set this number. He came in at 7.8%, so he got under that 9% walk rate. Mike and I were both wrong. We called for the over here. Alex called for the under. He was right. Mike, how did Cole Reagans get under that 9% walk rate?
Well, one, he didn't pitch a ton.
That helped.
That helps. But also, I think it's just improvement. The hitters also know that he's not going to throw enough outside the zone for you to really take advantage of. Although I'll tell you this, the end of the year, his stuff was so good at the end of the year that a lot of it was getting out of the zone just because of movement. And it was like, oh my gosh, he started this on the inside corner and it ended up, outside by 3-4 inches. But yeah, I always thought that the stuff was electric enough that it gets a little wild at times. And I really thought this was like the one I was like, well, that's a gimme. I'm like, Cole Reagan's definitely going over 9%. He's a 10 to 12% guy, most years. But yeah, good on him. Hope to see it when he comes back.
Speaking of a guy we hope to see bounce back with some great stuff, Seth Lugo was our next choice. We had over under 3.5 ERA. Now you'll remember in 2024, his ERA was like exactly 3. And so this was like, well, we expected a little regression to the mean. He regressed a little further. He went with a 4.15 ERA. So he was over that 3.5 ERA. Mike and I both said over there. Alex took the under. Alex, you were wrong on that one. But Mike and I accurately called that he would probably have something like closer to a 4 ERA. Injuries was really the big issue for Lugo this year. The injuries sort of played his stuff down, played his command down, even when he was pitching. He wasn't fully there, as himself. And so that was an issue, right? Next up, Noah Cameron, friend of the show, Joetown's finest. We love Noah. We're big fans of Noah Cameron on this show. We went over under 5 games started for Noah Cameron, which sounds ridiculous now. Why is that number so low? We couldn't have predicted how many injuries the Royals would have. Mike somehow took the under. That seems ridiculous in hindsight. Noah Cameron made, of course, way more starts than 5. He made 24. Alex and I both took the over. Mike, explain to us why you're an idiot.
It's because I wasn't certain he was going to be the number one guy after the first guy went down. I didn't know he was the sixth man.
Would be?
I didn't know if they were going to go with Daniel Lynch or if they were going to maybe go with if Kyle Wright was going to be healthy to start the year. I wasn't sure exactly. So I was like, okay, well, if he's Jonathan Boland was still, is he a starter kind of stuff there? So I wasn't sure exactly who.
I hear you grasping at straws
for
why you were dumb, but I feel like we can just explain it with genetics. Your real father. He's dumb. By the way, his real father is Kid Rock. So
yes, different from Mark's real father.
Yeah, mine is Alex Trebek. Chris. Speaking of Chris's, we're not. On to the next pitcher. We had Kris Bubic over under 135 innings pitched. Would have made it, but of course he got hurt, and so he ended up going under at 116 and a third innings pitched. Mike and Alex both got that correct. I was off by a little and got it wrong. I took the over. Mike, what do you think about Kris Bubic increasing his innings pitch total there, but not quite making it to 135?
I think we always knew that was kind of a risk. He had been hurt and then only had, I think, was it 30 innings in the bullpen last year. So there was always that risk. And there was always a risk that if he got to 135, the Royals would seriously throttle him down. So, he's going to be an interesting case this winter, and we'll talk about that here in just a minute.
Another pitcher, we're going to the bullpen this time. Carlos Estevez, big offseason signing. We said over under 3 ERA for him. He put up a great season, honestly. He led the league in saves, which I don't love that stat, but he did something. He led the league in saves with a 2.45 ERA. So he came in under that 3. Mike took the over. I took the over. We were both wrong. Alex had a ton of faith in Estevez. He took the under, and he was right.
Do you think he got a little lucky this year?
I do.
Like he got a little lucky this year.
I think there was a little luck involved.
What's his expected ERA?
I don't know. You look that up. We'll move on to the next thing. But I'll say that, it felt like he got a little lucky at times. It felt like his stuff just doesn't look like closer stuff is the thing. He looks like solid 7th, maybe 8th inning guy. But he got it done. And so, you really can't argue too much with the results. What's that expected ERA?
3.69.
Ah, see, he knows.
Yeah.
We know.
Yeah, I mean,
we threw in a surprise.
Some of his pitches, his run values are pretty good. I mean, he looks pretty good on a Baseball Savant page.
So. At the end of the episode last time, or the end of the little segment where we did our predictions, I threw in a wild card prediction, a surprise. Because remember back then, Jack Caglione had a great spring training, but we weren't really sure what he was going to do or where he was going to go. So I said, surprise, Jack Caglione over under 150 plate appearances. Mike and I were both like, under, come on. They're not going to bring him to the majors this year. He's going to have maybe 10. Maybe he gets a September call-up or whatever. Alex took the over, and of course, Alex was right on this front. He got 232 plate appearances this year. Not plate appearances we loved. Mike, I want to hear just your thoughts really quickly. He's going to get more plate appearances than that next year, probably. What do you think he's going to do with those plate appearances?
I think he's going to be better. He's a guy we saw improve from the year he got drafted to his second year. He didn't get a lot of time in professional baseball the year he got drafted, but we did see a step forward. I think he will continue to improve the issue of swinging so much and swinging on the edges and chasing. And boy, when he does, you're going to kind of immediately see some things look really, really good. He's going to take big leaps. It's not going to be I don't think it's going to be a small step here and a small step there. I think he's going to, hey, I've immediately gotten better and now I'm really driving the ball over the fence, because that's what he does.
It'll look like that anyway, because if he transforms over this offseason and he develops an approach that can really work for him, the way that Nick Lofton did, right? If his approach takes that kind of turn, he'll look night and day different next year. He will look completely different, and it'll look exactly like basically Carter Jensen with more power, honestly. Right? It'll look a little bit like that. Maybe it won't be quite that disciplined, but it'll look something like that if he can take that kind of turn. And we've seen guys do it in the past. We've seen guys develop an approach that quickly. If it can happen for him, he will take a huge step forward next year. Our record predictions, we were all a little high for the Royals. Mike predicted 88 and 74 as a record. I predicted 87 and 75, but the closest was Alex, who predicted 85 and 77. The Royals, of course, went 82 and 80, just missing the playoffs. Well, not just, few games missing the playoffs, and everybody was sad about it. If you're keeping track at home, in terms of total points, Mike collected 5 points, Alex collected 9 points, and I collected only 4. Alex, you are the big winner this year. Congratulations.
No, Alex is not the big winner. I won again.
We let him participate in the game, so he is the winner. Okay. He is the winner.
All right.
Okay.
I still beat
Alex, you have
though.
now won. Mike will build you a trophy out of toilet paper rolls. He has promised to do so. And so look forward to that. That's coming in the mail. Royals Weekly is brought to you by All In Physical Therapy, who are happy to announce that they now offer strength and conditioning programs for youth athletes who want to gain an edge on the football field, basketball court, or baseball field.
I'm going to be showing off all my newfound strength and conditioning at their cornhole tournament this weekend with you.
That's right. Yep, to benefit their scholarship fund to send kids to physical therapy school. It's a wonderful event. And of course, All In Physical Therapy still offers the best in recovery from total joint surgeries and sports injuries with offices in Blue Springs, Lee Summit, and Belton. They'll help you take care of your recently replaced hips, knees, shoulders, elbows, you name it.
One day, I'll be that guy nailing bag after bag because I just got a brand new elbow and shoulder, and I'm going to bionic cornhole champion.
Yeah, I saw some people in there. I went in there the other day. The place was, hopping, and people were getting their bag arms ready. I tell you,
Oh
if
yeah.
you're interested in reaching the peak of your athletic performance or getting back to 100% from an injury, check out All In Physical Therapy at allin-pt.com. That's ALLIN-PT.com. Or give them a call at 816-427-5300. That's 816-427-5300. Of course, with the offseason approaching, everyone's thinking about the Royals buying hitting upgrades on the free agent market. But there's another way to acquire talent that might be better suited for this Royals team: trades. The Royals have one tantalizing major league trading chip in Chris Bubich and plenty of prospects they can use to acquire some hitting talent. Mike, what teams do you think make sense as trading partners for the Royals this offseason?
Well, these are the teams I kind of went to, or this was my criteria for teams. I was looking for teams that are playoff contenders, or in the playoffs currently, or were expecting to get there, or are really going for it. And then I wanted ones that seemed like they had maybe a little bit of a crowded outfield, or maybe a corner infield right-handed bat type guy that didn't quite fit in the mix. And I kind of stumbled on these four teams for different reasons. Number one, Boston, currently in the playoffs. Two, the Mets. They just missed the playoffs, but they've got some interesting things going on dynamically on their team. The Rangers, largely because of the Chris Young connection. They also have some guys on the corner infield that could be interesting. And then the Phillies, similar situation there. Maybe need some pitching depth for the Phillies too. Definitely in that starting rotation as Zach Wheeler went down this year. May not, not sure when he'll be back and stuff. So, yeah, all those I think, are decently good teams.
Yeah,
And you
I
put
went
none of
with
them.
Well, that's what's wild to me. I actually did a fairly similar thing. I went and I looked at like contenders or teams that I thought maybe were missing. They're really their only missing piece was like starting pitching, right, or pitching generally, I guess. Um, and I came up with the Cardinals, the A's, the Angels, the Orioles, the Jays, and the Giants. Now, admittedly, the Angels are not, like, in my mind, one starting pitcher away, right? Neither
No,
are the A's really, but the A's at the very least could be a few starting pitchers away, and Chris Bubich could be one of those pitchers. I picked the Angels and put them on here just because they match up. They have a guy in their outfield who I think matches well with what the Royals want. And so I thought, okay, maybe they trade Chris. Maybe the Angels want to delude themselves into thinking they're one pitcher away, or they'll take a pitcher or whatever, right? Like the Giants have come out and said that they're looking for pitching this offseason. So that's just something that they've stated, right? And so I thought that they might be useful. And then the Jays, we saw their struggles with starting pitching when they came here in the final season or series that they had here in against Kansas City. And then the Orioles basically entirely collapsed because they have no pitching, right? And so a lot of those teams could really use some pitching and have the offense and maybe even an abundance of offense that they could trade away. Mike, I think you and I are going to disagree on this next one, but would you rather the Royals target established MLB talent in trades, or do you want them to go after hitting prospects?
I'm always going to go with established major league talent, because
Shocking, you old
I
fart.
don't trust I don't trust the promise of a minor league guy, because I'm a Royals fan and I've been burned so many times by them bringing dudes up and them doing nothing. That's just not. I'm not down for waiting for a guy to develop at the major league level if he needs to, when you're burning years on Bobby Witt Jr. and Michael Garcia. So yeah, I'm going to take the established major league guy 10 times out of 10, honestly, unless you're just getting upside that is unbelievable from a minor league prospect.
Well, that's the thing for me is like the problem with a established major league guy is he won't have many years of control. Probably, if he's established, it's taken him a couple years to get established. Probably, right? Like, and
Or he already has an extension and he will.
or they won't.
That's
Like
expensive.
the Royals, yeah, the Royals are not going to trade for a dude. They have to also pay $20 million a year. Okay, they're not going to do that. And so they're also, other teams don't want to give up guys who have 5 or 6 years of control but are like good players. Like they don't want to do that. Like especially the types of teams you would be trading with, like the A's, like the, Red Sox, like the, Giants. They don't want to trade away guys who are long-term control guys. And so it's basically impossible to get those guys away. And so I'm all like, take a prospect, baby, because it gives you 6 years of control. It'll need to be a prospect in the upper minors so that you can have a better sense that they might be here in 2026. But if you take the right prospect, look at Carter Jensen. Started the year in Double-A, came up for a month and really just crushed, right? And he's got the added responsibility of being a catcher. If you're an outfielder, you might even be able to make that transition a little faster, right? And so I think they could target somebody in Double-A or Triple-A, or who was in Double-A or Triple-A last year, and get 6 years of production. Yeah, will that person have to transition to the major leagues? They will. And is that tough? Yes, it is. But we also know that it's probably less tough for dudes who have really good approaches, which is who they should be targeting anyway, right? And so go after a prospect. It's a little bit more risky, but it's also the payoff is so much bigger, especially for a small market team like them. Okay, then, Mike, let's hear it. Everybody wants to hear these anyway. Give me 2 trade ideas you love for the Royals this offseason.
That's why I'm actually kind of excited about a couple of things that you just said in your answer, because it sets up very well for the 2 guys that I have picked. Okay. The first one is Kris Bubic for, I can't say this name.
I know you can't, but I want you to try. Give it a shot.
Johnston Oxon. I don't know how you say it. Jostin Oxon.
I've never seen that many consonants next to each other.
Jostinson Garcia, outfielder for the Boston Red Sox. Everybody just calls him the password because his first name is so impossible. I swear to God,
that is hilarious. That is hilarious.
They just call him the password because nobody can say his first name.
None of Mike's passwords are that difficult.
Exactly. His first name is impossible to spell, I'm sure. He's got a brother that plays in the organization too. Also has a really messed up name.
It's not messed up, to be fair.
To be fair, not messed up.
Just
extremely difficult.
It's unique and creative.
So unique and extremely difficult to say. So Garcia is an outfield prospect for Boston, the Red Sox. He has seen some time in Major League Baseball this year, a very, very limited amount of time, in a really crowded young outfield. He's a guy that put on a lot of weight and muscle in the last 2 years and was able to start impacting the ball a lot more. Like we've talked about some guys at high A that are very similar to that. They just need to put on some muscle. Can't remember the dude I like who plays center, but he kind of did that. He was able to do that. He's a center fielder. He's probably average in center field, so I don't know if they would play him in center field or if it would be like maybe a rotation with Isbel. Isbel's right-handed or left-handed. This Garcia's right-handed. So, but he's got some speed. He's got some pop now. He's a guy that I think hit 18 home runs this year in AAA, I think. Will steal a base, although it's probably not something you want to rely on there, and takes a walk. So he does have somewhat of a leadoff profile from the right side. So this guy's very interesting to me. And here's the thing. Boston's outfield is somewhat crowded in that you've got Roman, what's his last name?
Anthony.
Thank you, Roman Anthony, who they just, I think, actually already signed to an extension, didn't they?
I don't know, but maybe.
Big-time future, big-time prospect guy. You've got Jarren Duran, and then you've got like some veteran guys whose production is going to be steady. I don't know if they want to take a risk on bringing this guy up. And they also have other guys in the outfield, and they're looking for pitching. So he's a guy that I think you maybe could entice away if you wanted to. That's my minor league guy, and you mentioned you wanted a minor league guy that you'd have control of, and that's close. This is that. Okay. My second one here is way different. Kris Bubic for Brian Reynolds, the outfielder for the Pirates, corner outfielder, right fielder usually. This is a little bit different one because this isn't the guy that I usually go after, but you would need the Pirates to eat some of his contract because they gave him an insane contract. I don't know if you've heard this thing. It was 8 years and like over $100 million when he was already 28 or something. It wasn't good, or he bought out the last 2 arbitration years. So it was like 27, 28, and they've got like 6 more years left on this deal. It's insane. Oh, sorry, he still has 5 years left, and they're all at 15 million basically. And so you'd need him to eat out a couple, or really carve out the last year at least, give you 15 million back on it or something. But what he gives you is still has the bat speed at 30. That's good. Still, I think had 720 OPS, which was down from 790 last year, but it doesn't look like that was age decline necessarily, more related to luck outcomes. And so he still got, a solid square up rate. He still does that really well. He strikes out maybe a little bit too much. And the reason you really see his age is his defense has declined quite a bit. So he's going to give you probably average to slightly below average in right, but he lengthens that lineup. He gives you a guy who can hit 25 home runs, and he's a switch hitter, which I love. And so you can put him anywhere behind anybody in the lineup that you want to.
That might be the worst trade idea I have ever heard in my life.
Come on, man. Come on.
That's
it's
terrible.
Creative.
So think about that. It's creative in the sense that in the same way that like Howard the Duck was creative. Or
okay, here's the thing. Do you just not like the 15 mil every year?
I don't like the 5 years of it. So you're paying him.
I don't like the 5 years either. But
and 35.
I don't like the 5 years of it either. But you're actually only paying him for 4 because they're.
Well, let's say they eat half of the remaining salary, right? Would be a miracle. They won't do that, by the way. Another thing is the Pirates would never do this. They were more likely to trade you Brian Reynolds for a prospect so that they don't have to take on any more payroll. Like they want to just salary dump save maybe, but Bubic is going to cost $8 million in arbitration. They're not doing that.
That's true.
Like, that's crazy. That's crazy. Like
that's true.
A lot of reasons.
Right. I didn't think about that one. I just thought it was an interesting one because he's a switch hitter. He plays a corner outfield. This was really hard to find, guys. So.
Yeah, it was. This is a harder exercise than you think. Let me show you something better than what you just did. Okay. The first trade that I came up with was Chris Bubic to the A's for Henry Bolt. Okay. Henry Bolt is a AAA outfielder. He only had about, I want to say 120 to 200. I can't remember. Played appearances in AAA this year. Started out in AA. Really athletic outfielder. We know that the A's have a really good young lineup, but their pitching is garbage. And so, of course, they could use Bubic, right? And Bubic is more cost controlled, or at least for the next year, than going out and buying pitching on free agency, which the A's don't ever want to do. And so Bubic makes some sense there to me. Bubic is also from the Bay Area. And so there's an element of that there as well.
Well, they aren't in the Bay Area, but...
Oh, right. They are right now. Like they're in Sacramento right now.
Yeah, I guess. Are they going to be there next year?
They're going to be there for the next 3 years. And so he might be able to, they might be able to convince him, hey, stick around. You'll be home for 3 years, and Las Vegas isn't that far away from the Bay Area either. Right? And so the A's have plenty of outfielders and plenty of offense. They just desperately need pitching. Bolt is a great athlete, can play center, but probably, I don't know, he might rotate for the Royals. Like really good speed, almost elite speed. Really good eye at the plate, good disciplined hitter, about 11 to 13% walk rate, plus raw power, hits the ball very hard. He just needs to find a way to lift it more consistently. His launch angle at AAA was -8. That's bad. That means he hits a lot of ground balls, right? And so you need to find a way to get him to lift the ball more. But other than that, the second he starts doing that, it's like Jack Caglione. The second Jack Caglione finds the right approach, he's going to shoot off, right? Like the second Henry Bolt finds a way to lift the ball, that's it. He's going to be great, right? And so that's a guy I would sort of make a play for if I were the Royals with the Bubic trade. Another guy, if we're looking for an established major leaguer, Chris Bubic and Felix Arande to the Baltimore Orioles for Jordan Westburg. The Orioles are another team that just has an abundance of position player talent and an abundance of hitting, which is why they had to move Westburg to third base this year because they needed to make room for Jackson Holliday, right? But they have more. They're making room for Colby Mayo on the infield. They're making room for all these guys. They have a ton of guys on the infield who can play and who can hit. Westburg seems somewhat superfluous. He's a right-handed hitter. And, of course, the Orioles need pitching really, really bad. Felix Arande, I think you'd have to throw in to get Westburg because Westburg's got another 5 years of control left. And so they're not going to give him up.
I think he's a great player.
They're not going to give up Bubic, just 1 year of Bubic for 5 years of Westburg. So you'd have to give him at least a prospect, maybe a couple prospects in addition. So I'd be willing to give Felix Arande, Hero Wyatt, Drew Beam, any of those types of pitching prospects that Baltimore wanted, in addition to Bubic for Jordan Westburg. Westburg, consistent right-handed hitter. You can plug him in at second to play every day. Massey could platoon with him against some righties, but Westberg would still play 75 to 80% of the time. And then, bam, you've Lincoln in your lineup. He's got power. He takes a great play. He doesn't walk a ton.
Pesky kind of dude. I like it.
He doesn't walk. He strikes out 23% of the time, roughly. But it's still, it's good. He's good up there at the plate, right? And so I think that would make a ton of sense for the Royals. We'll end this week's episode like we end every episode with the Just About Outside segment, where we talk about something that's interesting to us outside the world of baseball. Mike, how's things going this last week? You got stuff going on or what?
Well, my kid just threw up like an hour ago, so
that's here's the headlines.
Not great. I'm likely gonna have to stay home tomorrow from work to nurse a sick kid, but that's okay. My thing I'm talking about today is something that I feel like doesn't get enough appreciation as like a great place, as a great eatery in the greater Kansas City area, and that's Martin City Brewing. I wanted to talk about that because you and I have been there together, and it's a place that you can get like affordable food that's really a step above like normal, like chain Chili's and Applebee's kind of places. They have a great lunch special. The beers that I've tried there are good. Like, it's a great place to eat, and you don't hear people talk about it when they talk about great restaurants in the Kansas City area. So Martin City Brewing, this is my shout out, my love letter to you. And this is another thing I was kind of thinking about when I was writing that was Martin City as a town really punches above its weight in the restaurant space. Because I believe the original Jack Stack is there. Obviously, Martin City Brewing is there. I have had a Mexican restaurant there that was really good once. Like what?
Martin City.
Yeah, who knew?
Who knew?
Martin City. How about it? Go Martin
Excellent.
City. Way to go. You're doing something right.
Go Martin City. You're doing it great. You're doing a great job. I'm talking this week. I just watched like a reel. If you know what a reel is, it's like an Instagram thing that has like sparked, because I've actually been thinking about this for a very long time, but it got me thinking more about it right before we started recording. So I just changed mine on the fly here. The reel was actually from the Financial Times, and it was about sort of a decline in the use of social media. And they were the numbers that they showed were actually internationally. So it's like everywhere in the world. The only where it's not the case, this is since 2022, participation in social media has been declining actually by about 10% in terms of usage across the world. The only place this isn't the case is North America, right? And so we're seeing still an increase in social media usage in the United States. But what's interesting about it to me is the person who sort of talking about it was talking about how like one of the reasons they think this is because social media has now become the exact opposite of its name. It is no longer social. It is in fact antisocial, as it sort of increasingly encourages us to not form any sort of meaningful connections with people, but to sort of sit there and look at this screen that is not even allowing us to interact with our friends and family anymore as the original intention of social media, but is actually just having us watch content created by content creators, right? Like us, right? It's an entertainment device and outlet more than anything, right? And so it just got me thinking about, like, lately I've just been thinking about how, like, man, things aren't growing great in this country, and things aren't. And I am somebody who vehemently blames social media and the internet for all of the issues that we're having. Like, there are other things I blame too, like the absolute abdication by news publications and journalism to do their actual jobs and stuff like that. But social media is like a big reason for it, and the internet. I feel like we talk about these things like they're definitely a social good, but that conversation I'm starting to hear turn a little bit and say, like, no, these things are not a social good. We might need to start looking at the internet and social media as one of the things that's such a big problem with our world, right? Like, and I love to hear those conversations, because I'm actually thinking more and more about how, like, maybe it's best for us to all just kind of go back to the 90s and like interact and be social in the ways that was done there. Like, I just saw a thing the other day I was speaking with a friend who had a copy of the Kansas City Star, like the actual newspaper, in his house. And he was like, hey, I'm doing it, the old newspaper. I'm like, yes, this is like,
I actually did that for a little while.
We need to do this. Like, we need to go back to tactile experiences. We need to go back to a slower news cycle. Like a daily is fine. A daily, like, newspaper is fine. We need to go. First off, we need to read our news and not watch our news because that's garbage just to begin with, right? Like, but we need to sort of start asking ourselves, when did things not feel like they were absolutely breaking down? And I think we'll find that this machine here that has like bunches of videos on it is not doing us any good, is not enriching our lives really at all, if that makes sense.
Real dark stuff this week, Mark, on the Just
It
About
doesn't
Outside.
feel dark.
Thanks.
Actually,
Thanks for
it's
sharing.
actually hopeful in my mind because we're actually starting to realize that might be a problem. And once we get away from it, I feel like things will get better, right? That's all we have for you. I'll leave you on that dark note for a month because we're not coming back with an episode next week. So here in about a month, we'll come back with another as the off season moves forward. If big news comes out between now and then, we'll come out with something. Until then, if you'd like a weekly episode, subscribe to that Royals Weekly Substack, royalsweekly.substack.com. But we'll see you sometime in about a month. Until then, be good to each other.
And go Royals.